Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is rejecting from critical resistance as Grayscale is dumping hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, which is dumping the price of Bitcoin in the short term. So in just a moment, I'll be talking about why that is happening and potential price targets to pay attention to. And on top of that, I'll be talking about Ethereum, as always, flashing a new signal in the short term, which I'll talk about later in the video. So definitely watch to the end. First of all, we need to talk about the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is now dumping hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, as I talked about over on my Twitter in real time. So as always, make sure to follow me over on my Twitter if you want real-time updates throughout the day. Link down below in the description and in the pinned comment. But at least as of right now, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust has basically dumped around 4,000 Bitcoin worth approximately $200 million US. And as you can see right here, they have sent that Bitcoin to Coinbase to dump a lot of that Bitcoin over on Coinbase. And as you can see over here, they actually hold over 620,000 Bitcoin worth well over $20 billion US. And I did touch on this in my last video here on the channel, talking about how the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF in particular could actually result in a lot of selling pressure for Bitcoin. But in my last video, I was mainly talking about the arbitrage trade that was going on, and that arbitrage trade has basically already closed because the discount to NAV for GBTC has basically already closed, and I talked more about that in more detail in my last video. But basically what is now happening with a lot of Bitcoin flowing out of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is essentially people are most likely moving ETFs. They are moving from the Grayscale ETF to potentially another Bitcoin ETF. And you might be wondering, what is the point of moving from Grayscale to another Bitcoin ETF if you're still going to have an ETF at the end of the day? And the reason behind that is most likely to do with the fees with these ETFs, because the Grayscale ETF fee is 1.5%, whereas another Bitcoin ETF fee, a spot Bitcoin ETF, for example, BlackRock's spot Bitcoin ETF, is only 0.25%. And so obviously, if you're comparing those fees, 1.5% to 0.25%, that's a big difference in fees if you're talking about a lot of money that you might be having in a spot Bitcoin ETF. And so obviously, if you're holding the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, GBTC, and paying a 1.5% fee, and if you're looking at the BlackRock ETF with only a 0.25% fee, it makes complete logical sense to move ETFs from Grayscale to BlackRock or one other ETF, for example, that might have a cheaper fee. And before the spot Bitcoin ETFs actually got approved and began trading on the stock market, you couldn't really do that. You can only sell this kind of on a secondary market, basically at a discount to NAV, which is what was happening. But now that these spot Bitcoin ETFs have actually been approved, you can essentially withdraw from this Grayscale ETF at net asset value, basically withdraw the cash that you had in there. But unfortunately, you cannot actually withdraw in Bitcoin. You have to withdraw in US dollar terms because it's a cash create ETF, which basically what that means is if a lot of people are moving from Grayscale to another ETF like a BlackRock for those cheaper fees, basically what has to happen is Grayscale has to dump that Bitcoin that's backing the ETF. If you're moving your shares out of Grayscale, if you're moving your money out of Grayscale, they have to dump Bitcoin. And then if you're moving into BlackRock, for example, then they have to rebuy that Bitcoin, but under BlackRock. And so obviously a much better system would be if you could just withdraw Bitcoin from Grayscale, or if Grayscale could just send that Bitcoin straight to another ETF if they knew you're transferring to another ETF. But no, unfortunately, the way the system's set up right now is if you're transferring from Grayscale to BlackRock, for example, Grayscale has to dump that Bitcoin, and then you're taking the cash, the US dollars, to another ETF, and then they rebuy that Bitcoin under BlackRock. And because we're talking about billions of dollars, actually tens of billions of dollars here in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, obviously that's possibly a lot of Bitcoin that could be about to be dumped if that Bitcoin's moving out of Grayscale and potentially somewhere else. But it is important to understand that the dump that's happening due to outflows from the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is likely very temporary. The dump is likely going to be very much temporary because obviously, even though Grayscale has a lot of Bitcoin that they're holding on to, it is still a limited amount. So eventually, they will eventually run out of Bitcoin if enough outflows happen. But even before that point, obviously, as I said earlier, once again, a lot of the money that's flowing out of Grayscale, out of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, is likely doing that due to their very high fee, that 1.5% fee. Because obviously, once again, if there's an alternative ETF like the BlackRock Spot Bitcoin ETF at a 0.25% fee, or simply just holding normal spot Bitcoin in cold storage for no fee, then it does make complete sense that there's going to be some outflows from this Grayscale Bitcoin Trust causing initial selling pressure. But once again, a lot of that money will likely want to stay in Bitcoin, which will essentially mean they'll have to rebuy Bitcoin either underneath another spot Bitcoin ETF or just buying normal spot Bitcoin. And so essentially there'll be an equilibrium where there's outflows coming from the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust causing sell pressure, but then if a lot of those outflows in dollars come back into another Bitcoin ETF and cause buying pressure, cause inflows into another Bitcoin ETF, then obviously that would basically equal out the selling pressure and the buying pressure and therefore stop the dump. But because we're in the early stages at the moment where the money hasn't traveled to the other side, actually adding the buying pressure, we're still in the sell pressure stage. Obviously, at the moment, this is causing a short-term dump in the price of Bitcoin. And once again, if you want to stay up to date in all of this happening throughout the day, then make sure to follow me over on my Twitter for real-time updates. Once again, link down below this video. And if you're enjoying the video so far, you might as well hit that like button down below the video while you're down there and subscribe to the channel if you're new with notifications turned on so that you don't miss out on these important update videos. But anyway, getting into the Bitcoin chart, and we can see here on the weekly time frame, we've seen a perfect rejection from the exact golden pocket, the most important Fibonacci area on the chart. And so once again, I've been talking about this over and over again recently on the channel, talking about how this is going to be very strong resistance for Bitcoin, sitting in between around 48,000 to 50,000. And as you can see, that's pretty much exactly where the price of Bitcoin turned around, right in between 48,000 to 50,000 as expected. And so at this point, it's likely that we're going to see at least a consolidation or possibly a slight correction before eventually breaking out later on and continuing the larger bull market, because really that golden pocket in between 48k to 50k is basically the final most significant area of resistance that's between the current price and the all-time high. But if we're taking a look at the daily time frame, we can see a bearish divergence is now confirmed and active on the chart, which is something I've talked about recently on the channel because the price of Bitcoin is still sitting in higher highs while the RSI is still sitting in lower highs. And so what this technically means is that we're losing some bullish momentum in the shorter term, which means we're most likely going to see either choppy sideways price action or potentially a bit of a pullback here in the price of Bitcoin, at least in the somewhat shorter term relative to the daily time frame. And now it is important to understand that a bearish divergence does not guarantee a massive bearish trend reversal. And so just keep that in mind. It does not guarantee that we're going to see a lot of bearish price action. It just means that right now we are losing bullish momentum. But at least for now, the DXY or US dollar index has not yet confirmed a bullish trend reversal because at least for now is still forming lower highs and lower lows, which technically means the Bitcoin price is still within a bullish trend on the daily time frame, obviously still currently forming higher lows and higher highs. But as I've been saying this entire time, even though I'm bullish on the trend in the price of Bitcoin on the daily time frame, obviously we can still see short-term pullbacks here and there, short-term dumps from time to time during a bullish trend. And staying on the daily time frame, looking at this ascending parallel channel, obviously we've seen another perfect rejection from this ascending line of resistance, which was sitting at around 47.4k. And right now, as of recording this video, we're running into the center line, which is acting as support, sitting at around 43.2k to 43.3k. But if we see a confirmed break below that center line right there, then it's likely we could drop down towards the lower line of support right here, which is sitting at around 39,500. But overall, while the price of Bitcoin is still within this ascending parallel channel, technically speaking, this is the price trending in the bullish direction, forming higher lows and higher highs. But once again, during a bullish trend, we can see short-term dumps from time to time. And if we're taking a look at the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, obviously this short-term bearish divergence is still playing out as expected, which is something I've been talking about over the last few days. And once again, a bearish divergence means we're most likely going to see either some choppy sideways price action or potentially a pullback in the price of Bitcoin, at least in the short term. And obviously this is now playing out. But if you extend this line of resistance right here and take a look at a line of support right here, we can actually see a rising wedge pattern that has already broken to the downside. And so this actually sets up a technical price target to the downside, a bearish price target, and that full price target is sitting at this area of support right here, the bottom of the wedge, which is sitting in between around 40,500 to 41k, acting as support. But if we're taking a look at the secondary price target for this rising wedge pattern right here, if we're looking at the width of the entry of this pattern, that sets up another price target, which is sitting at around 42.6k. And we do also have support at around 42.6k right here. And so potentially that is an initial price target to pay attention to. But if we break back below around 42,500, then it's likely we could drop back down towards around 41k. And something else to keep in mind is obviously the 4-hour Bitcoin RSI is actually approaching oversold territories right now. And so if this enters into oversold territories, that technically means we have limited room to the downside, at least in the short term. And so basically, we usually end up seeing either a slight bounce or sideways consolidation to basically reset the RSI if this starts entering into oversold territories. And if the RSI enters extremely oversold territories, if we see extremely oversold RSI price action, then that can also result in a bullish divergence later down the road. So this is something to pay attention to moving forward. And for the Bitcoin traders out there that are trading these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, there's actually a massive $2.2 million trading competition happening right now. And so if you're trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out because essentially registration has just opened for this competition. And if you're simply trading in this competition, you can get these extra bonuses like a 5,000 USDT bonus just by trading in the competition, getting some trading volume. And there's also individual prizes going all the way up towards $300,000 in bonus prizes. And also during this competition, I will be sharing my trades that I'm taking for Bitcoin or any other crypto. And so you might as well check this out in the description down below and in the pinned comment. In fact, it'll be the first link down below this video that will take you to this page right here where you can register and win a potential share in that massive 2.2 million USDT prize pool. But anyway, if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can see the price of Bitcoin dumped perfectly into a major area of liquidity. And I did mention just a couple of days ago here on the channel that the Bitcoin liquidation heat map was showing a lot more liquidity to the downside than to the upside, which meant we were likely to see a bit of bearish price action in the short term. Once again, I said that recently on the channel the last time I talked about this chart right here. And as of right now, we still have a decent amount of liquidity sitting at approximately 43,000. And so basically that's attracting the price of Bitcoin down towards that area right there. But that can also act as a bit of short-term support if enough people are buying in that area. But overall, just based on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, technically with more liquidity to the downside than to the upside, as of right now, this is looking more bearish, at least in the short term, than bullish. And if we're taking a look at the ETH to US dollar chart on the weekly time frame, technically we're still breaking out above that Fibonacci level, which is sitting at around 2440. But obviously, at least for now, we have not yet confirmed a weekly candle close above that level. So this breakout is not yet confirmed. And the next weekly candle close is in roughly around 2 days from now. And if you want to know more about this chart right here, then definitely check out my last video here on the channel. But if we're taking a look at the daily time frame, obviously just recently we've seen a breakout in the RSI above this previous descending line of resistance, which is technically a bullish signal. And if we're also taking a look at the daily Bitcoin MACD, as of right now, this is still currently showing bullish momentum. And so at least for now, in terms of the trend and momentum on the daily time frame, the price of ETH is still looking more bullish than bearish. But once again, even during a bullish trend, we can see short-term pullbacks and short-term dumps here and there, so keep that in mind. And if we're taking a look at the 4-hour ETH to US dollar chart, obviously just recently we've seen a major breakout above this previous area of resistance, which is now acting as new support, sitting in between around 2380 to 2420. And so if we actually see a major pullback here in the short term, that could potentially act as major support for the price of ETH. And it's also worth mentioning that just recently, the 4-hour Ethereum RSI did indeed enter into overbought territories after playing out that bullish divergence I talked about since all the way back down here. And so basically with the RSI entering into overbought territories, this basically means the bullish divergence is now over, which basically means we could now see a sideways consolidation or possibly a pullback in the price of ETH in the short term now that this bullish divergence has already played its part. And speaking of divergences, taking a look at the 2-hour ETH to US dollar chart, and right now we've just confirmed a new bearish divergence just in the imminent short term, only on the 2-hour time frame. Because as you can see right here, we've clearly seen higher highs confirm in the price in the candle closes, while lower highs have confirmed here in the 2-hour Ethereum RSI. And so basically what this means is just in the imminent short term, talking about the coming hours or the next couple of days, we're most likely going to see either some choppy sideways price action or potentially a bit of bearish price action, once again, just in the short term here. And if we're taking a quick look at the price of Solana against the US dollar on the 4-hour time frame, we're still basically chopping around sideways here in the short term, still technically within a bearish trend. We have not confirmed a bullish trend reversal. And in fact, in the imminent short term, it does look like we have a possible double top pattern right here, which is essentially the opposite of a W pattern. It's basically an M pattern, which is a bearish pattern. And if we break below the neckline, which is sitting at approximately $94, then in that case, that would set up a price target to the downside, sitting at around that golden pocket, which is at around $85. And so basically, if we break below around $94 and then break below this support sitting at around $92, then we're likely going to see a drop back down towards around $83 to $85 based on the golden pocket. But once again, between now and then, we do have that support at around $92. And as for resistance, we have resistance at around $108 and also at around $115 to $116. And as for the RSI on the 4-hour time frame, right now the Solana RSI is looking very neutral, basically chopping around sideways around the middle of the RSI indicator. But believe it or not, you can make a lot of money in crypto even during this choppy sideways price action or even during bearish price action. And if you want to know how to do that, then watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can long or short crypto to make money if the price is bullish or bearish, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit if the price is chopping around sideways. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.